I'm going to tempt the fates a little because I'm not sure everything is all the way dry. But that's just the kind of guy I am. Um, so here's what I'm thinking. As I keep sort of learning about these different specifics of these colors and trying to get a gradual value change, I know that this violet is going to get quite a bit, be able to get quite a bit darker. So what I'm going to do with that one is just take from this on down, I'm going to grab a little bit of a little bit more color. I don't want to make this one too dark, and I can just adjust individual things, but it helps keep things a little bit more unified if I address bigger shapes. So that's pretty watery, but yeah, that's kind of what I want. That's going to help bring this one a little bit more in line with these other second ones. This one is different. I'm not sure what to do about that, and that one I'll have to figure out too. But this is the one of the main things that's possible to do with watercolor. Is building up these layers. And I'm almost brushing to where I'm almost not pressing down, and the weight of the brush is kind of the only pressure that I'm using. So that's going to help make that darker, and I'll figure out how much darker and whatnot. The phthalo blue, you can see that did help. Hopefully you can see that that little layer did help that one, the second one, be not so obvious that there was that stain. And I said I'm likely going to just make these guys all darker, and indeed that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start from here and do I want this to be a little bit darker, and I'm just going to paint over all three of them to help strengthen the effect, the intensity. Low on paint there, but I think I'm okay. So it's good to be able to think locally and globally for the whole thing, locally and globally within certain bigger shapes. And yeah, so now I'm gonna come to the ultramarine blue, and go from this third one. I got so much water in it when I was trying to make it darker that it's taken a while for this one to dry. It looks like it's okay though. I'm not sure if that's going to be dark enough. The paper is actually buckling some, so that's kind of confusing, but a fun little watercolor challenge. The phthalo green is being a good example of the paint that I sort of left sort of pooling in that one spot, because there was such a difference in the degree of moisture. It's drying uneven, and it's creating a bit of a back run right here. Nothing that is something that I can't deal with. I'm going to see if I can bring it a touch more, a little bit more concentrated of the ultramarine blue. I want it to, there's sort of a hill right there here, and I want it to kind of stay in a place where it doesn't want to stay. So that's the time when we force our will on, no. That's the time we dance with watercolor and accept what it does well and what it doesn't do well. And it'll probably dry with a bit of a darker stripe right there, which will probably look really cool and will be something, in this case, I may have thought of doing anyways, but in a lot of cases the watercolor will do something cool that I likely would not have come up with myself, which is one of the reasons I think it's so fun. The cobalt teal I'll do something with. Man, that one I'm just sort of to my last swatch, so I want this to be pretty much as dark and concentrated as it can go, which is not very dark, but it can be quite a bit more concentrated. Squeeze out a dollop and move that around. I see my ultramarine is moving around as well. I'll make a thirsty brush. I think I'm going to let that one dry. Phthalo green. So it's still sort of drying in there. I just picked some up. And this is one of those times where I could just sort of sit back and let it dry. But what I'm thinking is that I want... I'm not sure what I want. I think I want everything darker a little bit darker from here on, sort of like the phthalo blue. I'm curious to see what happens if I paint over this whole shape it's still kind of damp over here. So strange things will likely happen over there. But I'm not so worried about that because I know they won't happen here or here. And I'm going to be coming back with even more stronger layers for those. So I have a feeling some weird stuff will happen over here, but I'm going for it anyways. Let me see. Is that too dark for that second one? He asked himself. I think it was a little bit, so I brought in a little bit of water. Oh, I'm getting a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. Let's see what happens. A great example. I mean, so it was still pretty damp right here, so bringing in this watery color, because it's still wet, the color will still move to where there's some water. And that is a fun way to make a back run. That's usually when I'm trying to do an intentional back run. That's the kind of stuff that is really quite fun for that effect. But that's not exactly what I'm after for this particular one, so I'm just going to kind of keep doing this whole shape, and hopefully you remember how I said that you can adjust, excuse me, while I pick this part up. It's possible to adjust larger shapes, especially if at least some of it is still wet, but you need to make sure that you address the entire boundary of the shape. So what I'm going to do for this one, because I don't want that excess paint to do the same thing that it did this last time. So I'm going to try to just make sure that all the excess I sort of get out of there. And that has these guys pooling a little bit too. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you can see that it's not perfectly consistent, but by the time I get a couple more glazes on there, I have a feeling I'll be able to get it as pretty much as consistent as the others and be okay with it if not. Cool. More soon.